My father blamed me my whole life for my mother's death. But when my sister slept with my boyfriend, and he defended her, I got married without him and received a $500K inheritance they never saw coming. I'm 29 years old. I'm married to the love of my life. And about 6 months ago, I had my dream wedding without my father present. And honestly, it was the best decision I've made in my entire life. I know it sounds horrible. Like, who gets married without their dad there? But when you hear the whole story, you're going to understand why I got to that point. This didn't start with the wedding. I mean, this goes back to literally when I was born. And I need to tell it all, because I still get messages from my father asking for forgiveness, and my sister sending me furious texts blaming me for basically ruining her life. So here goes. My mother, Marie, died when I was born. Complications during childbirth, something no one could foresee or control. But my father, Dennis, never saw it that way. He blamed me from day one. And I'm not exaggerating or being dramatic. He really blamed me. I obviously don't remember my first years, but my grandfather Stanley told me everything when I was old, enough to understand. My father basically refused to hold me as a baby, never wanted to feed me, didn't change a single diaper. It was my grandfather who practically raised me those first years until my father could sort of function again, but he never forgave me for existing. My sister Vanessa is 4 years older than me, and she did have mom for those 4 years, so in my father's mind, she was perfect. She was the last piece of my mother he had left, and I was the reason my mother was gone. Growing up in that house was weird because from the outside everything looked normal. You know? We had a nice house, we went to good schools, we didn't lack food or clothes, but inside it was like living in two completely different realities. Vanessa was the princess. Literally everything revolved around her. If she wanted ballet classes, she got them. If she wanted the latest phone, they bought it for her. I, on the other hand, was like the house employee. I'm not joking. From the time I was like 8 years old, I was already washing dishes, cleaning my room and Vanessa's, making my own food many times because my father simply didn't remember I existed. Vanessa went to her classes and activities, and I stayed home cleaning. My father never went to a single parent-teacher conference of mine, never attended any school presentation where I participated. Nothing. With Vanessa, it was different. He went to everything, recorded her, took photos, bragged to his friends. With me, he didn't even ask how school had gone. The craziest thing is that I kept trying to earn his love, you know? I got good grades thinking that maybe that way he'd pay attention to me. I tried to cook his favorite meals. I asked him how his day had been. Nothing worked. He'd respond with monosyllables or just ignore me directly. Vanessa, for her part, never did anything to help me or defend me. Actually, I think she enjoyed being the favorite. She'd make fun of me when my father ignored me, took things that were mine, and if I complained, my father always defended her. I remember once, I must have been like 14. Vanessa grabbed my phone, which by the way, I had bought myself with money from small jobs I did, and threw it in the toilet because she was angry about something that didn't even have to do with me. I told my father what had happened, and he told me I must have done something to provoke her, and that I should learn not to bother my sister. That's how everything was, basically. When I turned 18 and left for college, it was like breathing for the first time in my life. I got as far away as I could, went to a university in another state, got part-time jobs so I wouldn't have to depend financially on my father more than necessary, and started building my own life. That's where I met Aaron, my boyfriend at the time, and things were going well. We lasted like 2.5 years together. It was a nice relationship. He was attentive, we got along well, and I thought maybe it was something serious. You know, like I could imagine a future with him. I took him to meet my family only once before the incident. It was brief, like we had lunch and left, but apparently it was enough for my sister to decide she wanted him for herself. It was on Thanksgiving. I was 22 years old. I decided to visit because my father had been calling me more often, and I thought maybe, just maybe, things could get better. I took Aaron with me because he insisted on getting to know my family better. If I had known what was going to happen, I never would have taken him. From the moment we arrived, Vanessa started acting weird. She put on a super low-cut dress when she normally wore sweatpants around the house, sat next to Aaron at the table even though there were other seats, laughed exaggeratedly at everything he said, and basically completely ignored me while blatantly flirting with my boyfriend in front of me. I was uncomfortable but didn't want to make a scene, so I just tried to ignore it. Aaron didn't do anything to stop her either, which should have given me a signal, but I was so used to being invisible in that house that I barely processed it. That night, I stayed in my old room and Aaron stayed in the guest room because my father is very traditional about those things. You know, no couples sleeping together under his roof without being married. At like 2 inches the morning, I woke up because I was thirsty, went down to the kitchen, and when I was coming back, I heard noises coming from the guest room. They weren't normal noises. They were like, well, you can imagine. I froze in the hallway, not knowing what to do. Part of me didn't want to believe it. But I opened the door, and there they were, Aaron and Vanessa, together in bed. I'm not going to give more details because it still makes my stomach turn thinking about it. But yes, my sister was literally sleeping with my boyfriend in my father's house while I was sleeping a few rooms away. I think I screamed. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember Aaron trying to put his pants on while stammering senseless excuses, and Vanessa just looking at me with this expression of, I don't know, satisfaction? Like she had won something. My father came running because of all the commotion, and when I explained what had happened, you know what he said? He told me not to make drama, that these things happened, that Vanessa hadn't done anything wrong because Aaron was an adult who made his own decisions. He didn't even confront her, didn't even act like it was wrong. I yelled at him that she had slept with my boyfriend, in our house, and he just shrugged and said I was being immature and that Vanessa clearly hadn't forced him into anything. I left that same night, at 3 inches the morning, drove back to my apartment crying the whole way, like a 4-hour drive alone processing what had happened. I broke up with Aaron, obviously, blocked his number and never spoke to him again. With my father and Vanessa, I did the same. Blocked their numbers, blocked their social media, cut all contact. My grandfather, Stanley, tried to mediate, called me to say my father was confused and didn't know how to handle the situation, but I told him there was nothing to handle. That after 22 years of being treated like garbage, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. My grandfather understood. He had always supported me more than anyone in my family, and he told me he'd be there when I needed him. Almost 4 years went by without talking to my father or Vanessa. They were the best 4 years of my life. Honestly, I graduated from college, got a good job in marketing, met William at a work conference, we fell in love, and he's honestly the most incredible man I've ever met. He knows my whole family story, understands why I don't talk to them, and has never pressured me to reconcile. His family welcomed me like I was their daughter from the beginning, treated me with more love in 6 months than my father treated me in my entire life, and I finally understood what it was to have a real family. And then William proposed to me. I was 28 years old, and obviously I said yes. We started planning the wedding, something medium-sized, like 80 people, nothing too ostentatious but nice. I was happy, excited, and had no intention of inviting my father or Vanessa. But then, like 2 months before the wedding, my grandfather called me saying my father had had a serious health problem, like something with his heart, and was in the hospital. My grandfather didn't ask me to go, but I felt I should. I don't know. I guess a part of me still wanted to believe my father could change, that maybe this would make him realize that life is short and he had wasted our entire relationship. I went to the hospital. My father was there, connected to a bunch of machines. He looked bad, old and frail, and when he saw me, he started crying. He asked for my forgiveness, said he had been a terrible father, that he regretted everything, that he had let his pain over my mother ruin his relationship with me. He cried like I had never seen him cry, and I, like an idiot, believed him. I thought we were finally going to have the father-daughter relationship I had always wanted. I paid his medical bills because Vanessa didn't have money. Surprise. The spoiled child never learned to be financially independent and was still living with my father at 32 years old, and my father didn't have enough insurance to cover everything. It was like $30,000 that I took from my savings. But I thought it was worth it if that meant having my father back in my life. During those couple of months we talked more often. He asked about the wedding, seemed genuinely interested, and I even considered inviting him. I wasn't going to invite Vanessa. That was clear, but I thought maybe my father could be there. Then one day, like a month and a half before the wedding, my father called me and said he needed to talk to me. We met at a coffee shop near his house, and there he dropped the bomb. He told me he had been thinking a lot, that family was important, and that he couldn't go to my wedding if Vanessa wasn't invited. I told him he was crazy, that after what Vanessa had done there was no way she would be at my wedding, that that day was mine and William's, and I wasn't going to have someone there who had betrayed me that way. My father insisted, said Vanessa was my sister, that what had happened with Aaron was years ago, that I needed to forgive and move on, that he couldn't choose between his daughters. I laughed in his face, literally laughed because it was so absurd. I told him he had been choosing between his daughters my whole life, that he had always chosen Vanessa, that he had never been on my side even once, and that this only confirmed that nothing had really changed. I told him his apologies were garbage, that his supposed regret was a lie, and that he clearly had only reached out to me because he needed something, probably money or help, and that I had been foolish enough to fall for it again. I got up to leave and he grabbed my arm and told me that if I didn't invite Vanessa, he wouldn't go to the wedding. I said, "Perfect, don't come," and I left. I cried the whole way home, called William and told him everything, and he hugged me and told me my father didn't deserve to be at our wedding anyway. He was right. But it hurt. It still hurt because a part of me had wanted to believe things could be different. I told my grandfather Stanley everything, and he was furious with my father. He told me Dennis was a fool, that I was his favorite granddaughter. He had other grandchildren from his other daughter, and that he would be honored to walk me down the aisle if I wanted. And so it was. My grandfather walked me down the aisle, and it was perfect. The wedding was beautiful. William was crying when he saw me walking toward him. Our friends and his family were there supporting us, and I was happy, genuinely happy, without my father or my sister present. After the ceremony, there was a very special moment. My grandfather Stanley asked for everyone's attention during the reception and announced that he and my grandmother were giving me their vacation house on the beach. It was a beautiful house they had had for years, where I had spent the best summers of my childhood when my grandfather took me there to get me away from my father. He said they were too old to maintain it and they wanted me to have it, to make happy memories there with my new family. I was crying. Everyone was applauding. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. The house was easily worth like $500,000. It was in a very sought-after area of the coast, and it was completely mine. Apparently, someone recorded that moment and posted it on social media, or maybe my grandfather told someone who told someone else. I don't know how. But my father and Vanessa found out about the gift like 2 days after the wedding. My father started calling me. I didn't answer, so he started sending messages saying he needed to talk to me urgently about my grandfather's gift. I ignored them, but he kept insisting. And finally, Vanessa also started sending messages saying I had stolen her inheritance, that that house should be for the whole family, that it wasn't fair that I kept everything just because I was Grandpa's favorite granddaughter. William told me to block them, but I decided to confront them one last time. I agreed to meet with my father. Vanessa insisted on going too, at a public restaurant because I didn't want to be alone with them. They arrived and immediately started demanding that I return the house, or at least share it with Vanessa. My father said his dad, my grandfather, clearly wasn't thinking straight and had been manipulated by me, that I had spent more time with him just to get the house. Vanessa said she needed the house, more than me, because she didn't have money and could sell it to have some financial stability, that I already had a husband with a good job so I didn't need the house. I told them the house was a gift from my grandfather to me, that he knew exactly what he was doing, that he hadn't been manipulated by anyone, and that after everything they had done to me my whole life, they had no right to ask me for absolutely anything. Vanessa started yelling that I had always been selfish, that I always made everything about me, that it was my fault, the family was broken. And then my father, my own father, said something I'll never forget. He looked me directly in the eyes and said, "You know what, Claire? Honestly, I never wanted you. I wished thousands of times you had never been born, that my wife was here in your place, and nothing you do is going to change that." I sat there processing what he had just said. And the weird thing is, it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. I think deep down, I had always known it. But hearing him say it out loud was like finally having permission to let him go completely. I got up, told him I appreciated his honesty, that at least now, I knew for certain I had made the right decision to remove him from my life, and I left. Vanessa followed me to the parking lot screaming, saying I ruined her life, that because of me my father was depressed, that I was a bad person for denying them the house. I told her she ruined her own life by never learning to be a functional adult, that it wasn't my responsibility to support her or my father, and that I never wanted to see her again. I blocked them both from everything, changed my phone number, and told our few mutual relatives that I didn't want to know anything about them. My father keeps trying to contact me through social media with new accounts, sending these long messages asking for forgiveness, saying he didn't mean what he said, that he was angry, that I'm his daughter, and he loves me. Vanessa sent me one last message before I blocked her last account, saying I was a horrible person, that I had destroyed our family, that everything was my fault from the day I was born, and that she hoped I lived the rest of my life, knowing I was a selfish person who abandoned her family when they needed her most. And honestly, I'm at peace with everything. William and I are happy. We just celebrated our 6-month wedding anniversary. We go often to the beach house my grandfather gave me, and we're planning to start trying to have kids soon. My grandfather is proud of me. William's family adores me. And for the first time in my life, I have the family I always wanted. It's just a family I chose, not the one I got by blood. I don't regret anything. I don't feel guilty. And every time my father sends a message that I see before blocking it, it just reminds me why I made this decision. Some people don't deserve to be in your life, no matter how much blood you share with them. And it's okay to let it go,